Double trouble as two new winter storms are beginning to form. Who gets snow and ice in today's video? Welcome in, folks. Happy Sunday, November 30th, ending out the month on a very snowy, icy, and cold note for many of us. And I'll tell you, new area is going to get in on some of that winter weather over the coming days, followed up by another storm I've got my eyes on right around a week or so from now that once again could bring snow and ice further south. So a lot to talk about in today's video, a lot to break down, and that's exactly what we'll be doing. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Gerald. I'm a meteorologist at WCCB Charlotte. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Doing so will help keep you weather-wise here, keep you informed. It's free. It doesn't cost you a penny. Just a great way to keep up to date with the ever-changing weather data and my analysis of it. All right, let's waste no time today. Let's get right on into it. Next to me is the latest run of our European computer model, kind of what we call the King Euro or Old Reliable. It's one of the reasons I'm showing it to you, but do not be mistaken. We do have some model disagreement between this model and some others that we're going to be talking about throughout the video today. But either way, the European model showing a winter storm beginning really starting now for some folks and evolving especially into tomorrow and into your Tuesday and Wednesday. And then another system right here that moves south and begins to develop by this next upcoming weekend for the first full weekend of December. So the active pattern continuing. I've been telling you for weeks now, I think December will be quite a cold and snowy month for a lot of areas. The end of November has already started that process, and December looks to carry it on with what's to come. Now, out there right now, we already have the leftovers of one winter storm. Remember, we got absolutely dumped on with snowfall over the Midwest and the Ohio Valley. If you saw snow, let me know how much you've seen in the comments. Would love to hear those reports out of places like Iowa, Illinois, Indiana, Michigan, Wisconsin, or anywhere that saw the snow. But today, that snow now moving up into the interior Northeast. You can see it's snowing pretty good into portions of northern Maine today, into Vermont, New Hampshire, upstate New York, and even out down towards portions of Pennsylvania. You got some leftover lake effect snow back into Michigan, and some good old-fashioned rain into the I-95 corridor and down into the southeast. I'll tell you though, a lot of folks right now that are seeing rain, I think are going to have the shot at getting snowfall with our next storm as cold air begins to dive in behind this. That'll be one of the big talking points here coming up next. Speaking of that next storm, here it is. You can see it already getting going over the four corners. We've got snow out towards the Rockies, into Salt Lake City, back down into Cedar City, Utah, and even down into Monticello. There it is, beginning to develop. Where does it go from here, and who gets the snow? Well, that's a great question. You can kind of see the process that's going to unfold here on our upper level map here. You can see we've got a trough now digging down into the Rockies. Well-defined spin with this over the four corners. That's what's helping to create some of that lift in the atmosphere, get that low pressure to develop, and eventually this is going to kick eastbound, and you can see it kind of work on through the southern plains, through the Ohio Valley, and a lot of spin working through the Northeast, a lot of energy by the time we get into this coming Tuesday. That means low pressure going to be strengthening and snowfall totals going to be rising. Let's time it out for you. Well, our current storm beginning to move out. You can see that on our latest high-resolution rapid refresh model, and I really do mean latest. This thing literally just came out, so you've got the latest and greatest data here. That's working on out of here, but you'll start to notice here comes our next storm. It gets out of the Rockies, and it starts to get into the Central Plains and showing a band of snow developing over Kansas, portions of Nebraska. Could even see some icing back down towards Oklahoma here as early as tomorrow morning for your Monday. So be careful of that. And I do expect we could even see some light freezing rain, sleet, maybe even a bit of a wintry mix down into Little Rock, portions of Arkansas, but it looks like mainly snow up into Kansas and central and northern Missouri. Could see some ice down into the Ozarks. For areas out there, though, this is going to be more of a quick-hitting event, what I would call a light to moderate winter weather event. Nothing that you haven't seen before, but will still bring impact, so it's important to keep that in mind. By your Monday afternoon and evening, snow begins to spread into portions of Iowa. Chicago once more getting snowfall. Hopefully you've got the Christmas tree up by now if you missed out on the last storm, because this one, you'll definitely have those festive feels. Could even see some snow into southern Wisconsin. Then by the time you get into overnight Monday into the very early morning hours of Tuesday, approaching the midnight hour, it's snowing in Indianapolis. Really much of the state of Indiana, Illinois, we've got a bit of a wintry mess here, even down into the Ozarks of Arkansas. Getting close to a wintry mix into Memphis, but I think staying mostly north of the city, at least to start. Could start as rain, then maybe cold air catches up to that rain and changes things over. By the time you get well into the early morning hours of your Thursday, check out that rain snow line. It's trying to crash south here as another shot of cold air is catching up to our low pressure system that is now developing down near the Gulf coastline. And because of that, it could start as a bit of a battleground in places like Louisville, but I think changing over to a moderate wet snowfall, likely those big snowfall or those big snowflakes as well. Kind of with a setup like this. Now, because of that, that means that this is going to be a bit of a heavy snow. So we're going to need to watch for some power outages. It's going to be pretty heavy on some of those power lines. So keep that in mind through Indiana, Ohio, into Kentucky. You can see as the storm begins to develop, it starts to move up the Appalachian chain by 5 a.m. on Tuesday. A washout for Atlanta, Greenville, Spartanburg, Charlotte. Going to be a very cold rainfall here to start your Tuesday. Get the jackets ready. You're going to want to start the car and start to defrost it a little bit. It won't be icy down there, but it'll be plenty cold enough. You're going to feel it as you walk out the door. Could see some ice, though, into the mountains of North Carolina, into the mountains of the Virginias, all snow into Ohio. Starting to snow into Pittsburgh here by Tuesday morning and into the afternoon. And then it's going to be a close call. If you're watching in D.C. and Baltimore, you could start as a bit of an icy mix and then switching over to that blue, meaning snowfall, changing over to snow on the backside through much of Kentucky into Pikeville. Could get some back-end snow into Nashville. Would not surprise me. Wouldn't see big snowfall totals there, but nonetheless, it can happen. All rain for the Carolinas and Virginia outside of, again, the higher terrains where it could start as ice before changing over to some just good old-fashioned rain. Like I said, though, the I-95 corridor starting maybe as a quick icy mix, then changing over to rain, I think, for Philadelphia, Baltimore, D.C. The further north you get, though, the tougher the forecast becomes on that rain snow line. I think all snow in places like Scranton, Harrisburg, State College, the Finger Lakes, the Catskills, or the Adirondacks. New York City could start as a wintry mix, then transitioning to some rainfall. You keep it going here. Looks like mainly rain for Long Island, could start as a wintry mix and then maybe changing back to rain into the coastline of Connecticut and Rhode Island. I'll tell you where the forecast is most tricky, though. It's right into here, into Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island, southern Vermont, New Hampshire. That's where we start to get some pretty big differences on our model data as to where that rain snow line ends up. And you'll see that here in just a moment. I think all snow, though, for Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. I think the down east areas of Maine, this could be a pretty good winter storm for you, at least for early season standards here during the first couple days of December. Switch on over to the NAM model now because it goes out far enough in time we can actually use it. The NAM kind of picking up on that pretty good. A very heavy band of snow, I think, is going to develop here, or at least moderate to heavy, right along that rain snow line on the cold side. And if I had to pick someone that's in a really good place right now, western, central Mass, extreme southern Vermont, New Hampshire, you look pretty good. You keep this going all the way ahead into time. The down east areas of Maine looking quite snowy for your Tuesday afternoon, your Tuesday evening. Boston, Hartford, Providence. Such a tough forecast here on exactly where that rain snow line ends up. I think you'll probably see rain at least during points of this, but you could start as snow and you could try to maybe end as snow. Some of our data, though, keeps you snow almost the entire time, including some of our more reliable data. With that said, let's dive into potential snowfall totals here and break this down a little bit more in depth. All right, let's get into the good stuff. That's potential snowfall totals and ice totals. We'll start with just the blended models. I think it's doing an all right job here showing that band of snow developing for your Monday afternoon. Could produce a good 2 to 4 inches from Chicago through southern Iowa into northern Missouri. Areas south of there towards St. Louis, southern Illinois, and southern Indiana. Probably more of a 1 to 3 inch event. That's just the blend of models. They'll also add the western shores of Michigan. You've got lake effect snow ongoing now. You add more snow potentially on the way. It's been a very snowy start to the year for you out that way. If you look at the European model, though, that's kind of what I'm going to compare things to. I'm going to show you the blend, then I'm going to show you the Euro just to see where some things might not line up. The European, just lower on totals in general, but does have that band of snow up here into northern Missouri, into northern Illinois as well, and southern Iowa. But generally speaking, you can see, I think the blended model's a pretty fair bet here. To make just a nice, good little light to moderate snow event into this part of the country. You go further south into the Ohio Valley, I think pretty good snowfall totals into Louisville. I'd expect 1 to 3 inches there. Same thing for Cincinnati. The further south you go into Kentucky, though, the less cold air you have to work with. You're likely going to be mostly rain, but you could end as snow as that cold air catches up. So watch for a brief dusting upwards of an inch here through the rest of the state on the back side of this. But the better total is going to be up into Ohio, where much of the state's going to see 1 to 3, 2 to 4 inches of snow. But further south from there into areas into Tennessee. Same thing, mostly rain, maybe a very quick dusting on the backside would not shock me. If you look at the European model, or actually, where is the European model? There it is, and I'll show you the ice next. The European's a little bit more excited about that back end snow. You can see it gets maybe 1 to 2 inches right through the heart of Kentucky. Some of that even tries to sneak on down into the Nashville area, so a little bit more aggressive there. But still, I think they'll blend a pretty fair bet. What about ice? How much ice can we expect out of this? Now, I am watching into central Arkansas, the Little Rock area. We could get a quick glaze to 1/10 of an inch on the start of this thing tomorrow morning. Be very careful if you have any plans leaving it outside. Could see some very icy areas, especially those bridges and overpasses. Keep that in mind. Not going to be a big ice storm. Not going to see widespread power outages, but just keep in mind that things could definitely get slick out there to start the day tomorrow. The Northeast, this is where this gets a little bit more interesting, and you start to see some differences. Here's the blend of models. You start to notice a very sharp divide, as we normally see this time of year with any sort of winter storms. Philadelphia, not a whole lot showing up. DC, Baltimore, not a whole lot showing up. Some of the models get you a little bit of snow, but the much better totals here on the blend, at least, up towards Scranton, into the Hudson Valley, Western Mass, Central Mass, down east areas of Maine, into southern Vermont and New Hampshire. This kind of corridor circled is where it keeps the bullseye of things. Still has a 2 to 4 inch mean in Boston, and then obviously you start to have very sharp gradients. The Connecticut coastline, almost nothing. You go further north towards Massachusetts, isolated spots mixing in nearly half a foot of snowfall here is what's showing up, at least on the blend of models. New York City, same thing, not a whole lot. You go up north of the city, you start to see better accumulations. That's the blend, though. Let's show you some other models, including the European, which has a bit of a different solution that it's really sticking to and has done so over the past couple of days. Here's the brand new afternoon run, of the European model, and a completely different story for some areas. Check it out. It's got nearly a foot of snow into northern Rhode Island and about half a foot up towards Boston. If you go back to the blend of models, that's a completely different story. So we're seeing some differences in the models. So I don't want you to look at the blend and assume this is exactly what's going to happen. Now, this is the best forecast to give because it kind of puts everything together and kind of eliminates some of the error. But there are some solutions like the European that is a lot more exciting for folks here in southern New England. Gets almost half a foot through a lot of Connecticut. Like I said, Rhode Island, at least the northern half of the state, big snowfall totals, dumps a good half a foot on Boston and actually brings the heaviest snow further south. So it wouldn't be as big of a storm into the down east areas in southern Vermont, New Hampshire. Still a good 3 to 5 inches, don't get me wrong, but you'd see less half a foot plus totals up that way. Also gets that band of snow that's heavy into northern New Jersey. If you're north of I-80 in Jersey, half a foot is what the European shows. And only, 50 miles north of Philly up into the suburbs gets a good 2 to 4 inch snowfall. Still not a lot into New York City, still not much into Philly, and, maybe a little bit more down towards Baltimore. But either way, I think really down here, not expecting a lot out of this. If you're Philly, we'll even say New York City, southbound on 95, could definitely see winter weather out of this, but it's just not going to be a big event. Could the next one be big? We'll see. I do see another one on the horizon. Obviously, still plenty to figure out there. Here's another model. Here's the Canadian model. I think the Canadian, probably the safer bet that I would go for right now. It shows big snow into central and western Mass, southern Vermont, New Hampshire. Isolated spots getting a foot. Now, that might be a bit much, but I do think that's where the bullseye of this storm will end up and is a lot less for Boston. And unfortunately, if you're in Boston, I think that's probably the case. Now, could you get a quick thumping on the front side? You get a couple of inches maybe? Yeah, that's definitely possible. I just think the warm nose is going to take over into a lot of these cities down here during the middle of the storm, but you could start as snow and into snow. It's that halfway through point that gets a little less exciting. The GFS model, almost a bit of a blend here between the Canadian and the European. And you get the idea. It's a sharp cutoff, folks. I mean, you could get almost nothing in Rhode Island, and then you go up towards central Mass, you could have a foot of snow. And that's just the way it goes here around wintertime. And like I said, I think going back, I think the blend here, probably an okay bet. If I had to pick one of the operational models, I think the Canadian's probably the closest, but watch the European. It's been sticking to its guns, and do not rule out a scenario like this where some of us further south and east do get a pretty good surprise out of this system. Ice up this way, not expecting a lot of it. We could start with a little bit of ice. Again, I think further down south towards West Virginia, Western Maryland could see more of a glaze to 1/10 of an inch plus of ice. Into the northeast, maybe a glaze, I think would be the worst case scenario. All right, that's this storm coming up. We spent way too long on that one probably. Let's give you a very quick teaser to another storm, that could be on the horizon and what exactly that one may have in store. Well, the train of energy continues, and the cold air is also going to continue to dive into the eastern U.S. It's going to come in shots, And the question really just becomes, who does the cold air line up with the energy for? Who sees that overlapping? Well, here we go. By Wednesday, and this is really overnight Tuesday into Wednesday, here's our northeast storm. That's the one that produces all the chaos I just showed you. Then comes another piece of energy, another trough diving down into the Rockies. This is round 3, really. We've had the big storm a couple days ago. We've got this one coming up, and then we've got another one I see by next weekend, starting once again into the Rockies, diving south, and then the energy getting pulled east with cold air lurking to the north. Now, here's the thing, folks. I'll tell you this much, that we're going to need to figure out where in the world is the rain snow line set up with this one. Again, I think it's going to be a bit of a nightmare to forecast. We'll show you a couple models, though. Here's the GFS and the European. We'll show you the differences and the agreements. There's the energy. So you see all sorts of rain down south into the Gulf Coast. You've got cold, high pressure to the north helping to bring down cooler air. Now, if this were January, this could be a really good setup for snow and ice down into the I-85 corridor of the southeast, your Atlantas, your Greenville, your Spartanburgs, your Charlottes of the world. However, it's early February, or it's not February, excuse me, it's early December, and not quite February. I'm not planning on time traveling either. But because of that, we got a little bit less cold air than you would expect during the heart of winter. So the GFS, and let me immediately start with, this is not a forecast, especially for all my friends in Charlotte who are going to watch this and go off telling the world your old set of snowstorms coming on this weekend, because that's not my forecast, and I doubt we'll see that. But nonetheless, the GFS does show that cold air getting into place and gets a bit of a classic I-85 North winter weather event into the southeast. You've got snow into the mountains and the foothills, especially I-40 North, probably a bit of a wintry mix into the I-85 corridor, and it's a southeast mid-Atlantic winter storm event, or winter event of sorts, maybe not a full-blown storm, and then gets some light precipitation up into the northeast, and then gets a whole nother clipper by about 7 to 8 days from now. That's what the GFS shows. Unfortunately, though, the GFS likes to overdo these things from time to time. Here's the European. Now, the European, I'll completely agree with you. It has the energy there. It has the cold air. Does the cold air get far enough south that southeastern cities like Charlotte and Greensboro get winter weather out of it? Right now, that's a less likely scenario. Not impossible, but less likely. The European model shows a freezing cold rain. Now, I say freezing rain. I probably shouldn't say that because that's its own thing. A very cold rain. How about that? 35, 40 degrees in rain is what it shows in Charlotte, Greenville, Spartanburg. Does get some snow into the mountains of North Carolina. I buy that. That makes sense, I would say, climatologically speaking. Gets another snow event right into the Ohio Valley. If hopefully you're not tired of snow in Illinois, Indiana, Ohio. This has been your winter so far to start things off. It's a winter weather event into the Appalachian chain and another northeast winter storm, but a completely different track, completely different amplitude, and a completely different scenario. Really, all we know about this storm right now is we've got energy and we've got cold air. Who that lines up for? Well, the best thing to look at is the ensembles, per usual. So let's end things out by taking a look at those and showing you who is the best shot by next weekend to see winter weather. All right, per usual, this is the chance of seeing accumulating snowfall within a 24-hour time period. What does it show? Well, we're going to focus on that final storm that we've talked about today. That is for this coming Thursday. That's when this is, at least this coming Thursday, and then into the weekend. Snow chances, again, looking good down into the Four Corners. Here comes the system. Pretty good snow shot once again into Kansas, Oklahoma, your Missouris of the world. I say Missouris like there's multiple of them. You get the point. Down into the Ohio Valley, and then does show a signal. In fact, a not terrible one down into, we'll call it the foothills of North Carolina, specifically north of I-40 here, and then up into western portions of Virginia and West Virginia itself. A signal there for sure, and then also gets that signal into the northeast. Remember, the operational run wasn't very exciting. The ensembles, though, pretty good signal for snow for a lot of the same folks that are in line for it now, and higher chances with this one for the I-95 corridor than our current storm outside of maybe Boston, where, again, it's really anybody's guess what ends up happening. You can see that work on through. So something there definitely showing up on the European model and its ensembles. It's just a matter of figuring out for who, at least for nitty-gritty stuff, but you get a general idea. GFS ensembles, here it comes. You can see the Four Corners get some winter weather. And then, honestly, the GFS ensembles, for as exciting as the operational run was, yeah, kind of just a pity if you're a snow lover. I mean, even into the 85 corridor where it had snow into South Carolina, got about a 5% chance, 10% of actually seeing that come to fruition here. Is fruition the right word? Maybe not. Tell me in the comments. Coming to light, whatever you want to say. Down there, it just doesn't look very likely right now for my friends that far south. But places like Greensboro, Asheville, Boone, northbound, I could definitely see this being a sneaky winter weather event. especially icing wise. If you look at the EPS, you can see, and this actually isn't the right map that I want to show you. Let me go to, where is it? There we go. This is the right one. Freezing rain, same map, the chances of freezing rain. Here we go for Monday into Tuesday. Like I said, could see some freezing rain. And then you see the signal grow. And it's not nothing down here. The signal has dropped a little bit from yesterday, though. Like I said, I'd say the Triad up into Blacksburg, Virginia, Boone, portions of West Virginia, northbound up the spine of the Appalachian chain. I think you've got a much higher chance of seeing winter weather out of this. Charlotte, I put at about a 10-20% chance right now. Any sort of freezing rain or ice would occur next weekend. Greenville, Spartanburg, we'll leave it about the same. Atlanta, probably not happening. Columbia, not seeing it with this one. But we'll watch it nonetheless and keep you informed. But that's what I'm seeing right now, folks. That's the latest data. That's all of the info I've got for you. Couple things to say at the end. This video went way longer than I expected, but I will be live today, tonight, as you're watching this potentially. 6 p.m. Eastern onward, we're going to break down this winter storm for you that's happening over the next couple of days and give you another teaser on the one next week. And I'll be with BGWX once more. If you watched our last live stream, you'll remember him. He's a real weather whiz when it comes to Northeast stuff. So if you're up there and you want to know what Boston might see or some of those areas I told you we have a tough forecast, tune in tonight. It's going to be a great place to get those sorts of resources, or you can always watch it after the fact. Should be up by about 7 or 8 p.m. Eastern. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe. Think snow if you want it, and I'll see you all tonight.